an introduction to the project, the Bailiwick Dolphin project, which I'm running with Liz Sweet, who's the manager for the Guernsey Biological Record Centre, and just also like an introduction to the different cetaceans that you have out there and things like that. So hopefully it will be about like a 30-minute, I've got a little presentation and some videos. And then, yeah, if you've got any questions and stuff like that, please feel free to fire away at the end. I can do my best to answer. Or I can just say, Liz will know, because I probably don't. Yeah. Right, so I'm just going to share my screen, hopefully. And then put this up. Okay. Can everyone see the presentation? Hopefully.
Yeah, it's up on screen.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Step of Zoom gone successfully. Right, so the Bailiwick Dolphin project, just to give a bit of background, I created this with Liz back in 2019 because I was working out on the rib boats with Dan Minky on the Guernsey Island rib, and during the season of 2018 we had loads and loads of dolphin sightings, and having talked to Liz about why there were so many sightings and like where they'd come from, there really wasn't much of an answer, and we realized that Guernsey's really under-researched dolphins in the area, especially bottlenose dolphins, even though there's been a general increase in sightings since 2014. So we set out to try and get more sightings data in and try and work out why species like bottlenose dolphins were suddenly appearing with such frequency in our waters. So just a bit of a background to whales and dolphins and bottlenose dolphins. All whales and dolphins belong to the family of Cetacea, and it's a really big family. There's over 90 known species, which are found all over the world, from North Pole to South Pole. And then cetaceans come in all different shapes and sizes. So you've got things like blue whale, which is the largest creature to have ever lived, and you've got animals like narwhals, which, well, they have a tooth that grows out into like a horn, so very diverse. And cetaceans are separated out into two groups: toothed whales, and that's animals like porpoises and dolphins, and then the other order is baleen whales. And so that's things like humpback whales and blue whales. So they've got very different morphologies. In Guernsey, we do actually get both toothed whales and some baleen whales appearing, which is really exciting. Unfortunately, blue whales is not one of the baleen whales that we see here. So quick overview then of the separate anatomies. Toothed whales generally have a really streamlined appearance, like a torpedo shape. Their mouths form often a beak, and they have teeth, so hence the toothed whales. But not all toothed whales have a jaw full of teeth. For example, the Risso's dolphins, which I'll talk about a little bit later, they have only got something like 6 to 10 teeth in their mouth. So depending on the different toothed whale species, you might actually not see that many teeth present. All toothed whales have pectoral fins, which they use like a rudder to help them steer. And most toothed whales have a dorsal fin. Not all of them, but nearly all of them. And that, again, helps streamline and guide them when they are pushing through the water. Toothed whales have only got a single blowhole, which is on the top of the head. And that's actually really different to baleen whales, which have 2 blowholes, like human nose, like nostrils. Yeah, baleen whales have a less streamlined shape generally. And instead of teeth, they have sheets of baleen, which is in their mouth, and it acts like a sieve, because baleen whales tend to eat really small fish species like capelin, or even things like krill or plankton, so tiny organisms that live in water, and they have to sieve that food source out of the water column. Generally, they have the same otherwise body parts, so baleen whales will have a dorsal fin and they will have pectoral fins, but they might be located in very different, dorsal fin might be located in a very different place, quite near the tail sometimes. So what do we get in the Channel Islands? I'm sure you guys actually have seen more whales and dolphins out in the Channel Islands than I have. I'm still yet to see a minke over here, but fingers crossed. So yeah, we have minke whales in Channel Island waters. Minke whales are about 9 to 10 meters long. So really small for a baleen whale. They're generally seen around the spring and summer season in Guernsey, and generally seen quite far offshore, so fishermen will see them. We did have a sighting in 2020, very close to the south coast, which is exciting. But yeah, on the whole, you probably have to go quite far out to see them. They've got very dark coloration, dark grey, but their pectoral fins have a white stripe running along them. So if you were close enough to one, it's almost apparently quite luminous in the water. But they are the smallest baleen whale that we have in the North Atlantic, so cute. We also have, or are meant to have, sei whales and fin whales. These two species look very similar to one another. Sei whales take up the bronze medal for the largest whale to have lived, and fin whales take up the silver medal. So fin whales can be as long as 25 meters, which is, I've tried to work this out, it's about the width of a football field, I think. Oh, yeah. So yeah, I really want to see one, but you would have to go really far offshore. They normally are found in the deepest waters in the Channel. They are seen quite often off of the French coast, especially around the point, around the Bay of Biscay. But ways to tell these two whales apart, it's very difficult, sei whales and fin whales, because they have the same grey coloration. But what I have been told is that fin whales have something called a colour asymmetry on their jawline. So on the right-hand side, in the diagram it shows, on the right-hand side of a fin whale's face, its lower jaw is white, whereas on the left-hand side, its lower jaw is grey. You'd have to get quite close to see them to see that, but it's a really fascinating coloration difference. But this isn't present in sei whales. The last whale that we have as a baleen whale that we might see is humpback whales. This is a really unusual case that actually happened about 2 years ago in Jersey. There was a humpback scene, but it's unlikely that we will see humpbacks in the Channel Islands with any frequency. In this case, the scientists have noted that it's probably because the humpback whale got lost on its migration route down south. So yeah, I would love to see them around here, but I think we'll have to stick to going to visit Cornwall. Cornwall's been having loads of humpbacks this winter, and I'm very, very annoyed I can't get over there to see them. As for toothed whales, for dolphin species, we have the Atlantic common dolphin, which some of you probably will have had bar riding in front of your boats, I'm sure, over the last couple of years. Atlantic common dolphin are about 2 to 3 meters long. They have a really notable yellow stripe running down their body, which kind of ends in a, what's it called? In like a cross mark. And in Guernsey, we see them on average in pods of 30, but they've been known to form pods of thousands of individuals elsewhere in the world. We also have bottlenose dolphins. Bottlenose dolphins we'll talk about more in detail in a second, but they're the dolphin that we now see most often in the Channel Islands. They're much bigger in terms of width. They're chunkier than common dolphins, and they've got very grey, boring coloration. But again, they're very friendly and like to bow ride on boats. Both common dolphins and bottlenose dolphins are found throughout the world, except in polar regions. So you might see them elsewhere if you're on your travels as well. We have Risso's dolphins as well, which are appearing in our Channel Island waters. This is really exciting because Rissos are very understudied. They're quite a mysterious dolphin to researchers. So while they have what appears to be the same kind of coloration to bottlenose dolphins, they have a very distinct white marking that they get as they grow up. But because Risso's dolphins eat almost exclusively on squid, that they get scarred by the squid, and all of these scars go white over time. So they just have a very pale, scratched appearance, which is really hard to like mistake for anything, any other species. Rissos also have a very long dagger-like fin, which sticks out the water quite far, and some people will mistake them for orcas if they're in the same region. But we've only seen them normally in the summer periods over in Guernsey, so like August, September time, but maybe that might change. Otherwise, we have Atlantic white-sided dolphins. These are a very far offshore species, and they're quite shy. They don't really bow ride. So the only reports that we've had in Channel Island waters have been for far off boats or the occasional stranding. Nonetheless, it's kind of important to note them. So they're called white-sided dolphin because they have a white stripe that runs straight along their body, and it ends in a yellow blaze right near their tail. But they're around the same size as common dolphins. And then lastly, I've got to mention the long-finned pilot whale. These are the largest dolphins that we have in our waters. They're about 6.5 meters long, and they're very dark in coloration, almost black, with a pale saddle patch just behind their dorsal fin. And their dorsal fin's shaped like a crescent. So the historical records we have in Guernsey say that about 25 years ago, they used to be seen fairly regularly off the north of Guernsey, but nowadays we only sight them occasionally in France or Jersey, but who knows, maybe they're still out there, and we might be able to see them in the future. Lastly, I've got the harbour porpoise. So I asked recently how often people used to see harbour porpoises when I was on Facebook, and people said that back in the 50s and 60s, harbour porpoises used to be really abundant in Guernsey, and people would apparently see them while they were going over to Herm, but they're not as abundant nowadays. You do see them off the south coast if you're looking really hard, but it's a really small cetacean. It's only about 1.5 meters long, and it's got a very small diddy triangular shaped fin, and that fin is probably the only thing you'll see if you see them in the water, because as soon as they sight a boat or something that might be a threat, they will swim away and they'll never be seen for like another hour. But yeah, I saw them not that long ago, just off of Cherbourg, so they're still there, still hiding out and still hunting around our shores. So a little bit more detail about bottlenose dolphins, because as I said, they're the focus of Liz and my's project. So bottlenose dolphins can be found throughout the world, and they live for quite a long time in the wild, about 50 years. They're an extremely social animal, and they like to spend time together in pods, which can range in size, as I said, with the Guernsey's pod averaging about 30 individuals. In different parts of the world, bottlenose dolphins will eat a variety of different prey foods. So in Guernsey, this might include things like mackerel or squid or other fish. And bottlenose dolphins are incredibly intelligent animals. They're one of the only species in the world, including us and chimpanzees, that can recognize themselves in a mirror. Yeah, so their populations are when you see worldwide, the population is seen as quite a stable population. But if you go specifically into the European subpopulation of bottlenose dolphins, they've been designated by IUCN as vulnerable. And so we really need to, in Guernsey, do all we can to at least help the population stabilize itself and get a little bit better, because otherwise it's just going to continue to be vulnerable or get worse. So how do bottlenoses communicate and get around their environment? Well, they're very good with sound, because it's quite hard to see in the sea in Guernsey, or generally speaking. I mean, the visibility right now is probably 2 meters, and that's pushing it. So instead of just using sight to navigate around, bottlenose dolphins have a form of very advanced echolocation, which they use to navigate around their environment. And then you have a variety of other sounds that they also use to communicate with other members of their pod. So you might have heard, if you're bow riding, if you have them bow riding with you, you might have heard them make lots of whistle noises, pops and squeaks. That's them talking to other members of their pod. It's quite a developed language, especially for an animal that doesn't have vocal cords. And they even have a signature whistle. So like we have names, dolphins will designate themselves a particular whistle sound, and that's what it uses to refer to itself, or it will have it use another whistle sound to refer to another, which is really, really cool. Lastly, in terms of echolocation, there is a specific form that they have when they're building like an acute picture, or when they're even stunning prey, and it kind of sounds like a laser beam. If you Google it or look on YouTube afterwards, I'm sure you'll have happy smiles on your faces, because it's a pretty cool sound. So why are we studying bottlenose dolphins? What are we doing with our project? We want to understand, me and Liz with the Guernsey Record Centre, we want to understand why we're getting more bottlenose dolphins in our waters, and we understand more about this population. The population, as far as we're aware, this is the GECC group who've done a report a few years ago. GECC are group étude des cetacea du continent. I'm not very good at French, as you can hear. So I'm going to refer to them as GECC from now on. They are a specialist group in Normandy that study bottlenose dolphins and have been studying them since around 2000. They have worked out their local population, how many members they think they have. It's around 570 individuals, which is an insane number. But their study area, if you see the diagram, it's missing Guernsey. So the whole area that they've studied is the dark blue area in this map. But they haven't really managed to get out as far as Guernsey and Alderney. They have managed to work out with Jersey where the population might be going. But that means that, yeah, Guernsey is heavily understudied for its bottlenose population. But if there are 570 plus individuals in France, it is very likely that we are getting some of those individuals coming to Guernsey now. And we don't know why they're coming here, and we don't know exactly who is coming here. So the French group have managed to work out that there's 3 subpopulations of bottlenose dolphins, and in the map, these subpopulations are coloured in red, green and blue. They cover different areas, and apparently they're genetically different, so they don't really, a red population doesn't really talk to a blue population. So it will be very interesting to know if we get one particular type of this population coming to Guernsey or Alderney, or if we get lots of different types that just visit for a day. We don't know. And that's, yeah, what we're trying to work out. So alongside working out what populations we have and how many we have, we can also work out what they are specifically doing while they're here. If they are just hanging out for the day, if they're hunting, maybe if they're seeking out this island as a refuge from the busyness of France, we don't know quite yet. But we are asking for everyone to send in their sightings reports to us, and also to send in photographs, specifically bottlenose dolphins, because this will help us work out all of these bits of information. We're also asking if you've got other sightings of other cetaceans. We want those too, because we and the Guernsey Biological Record Centre, we just don't have enough records being sent in every year. People started to think, I think they were common. It was really easy to see bottlenoses, so we won't report them. And so that means we don't have a great picture of what's happening year on year with our populations in general. But specifically going to bottlenose dolphins again, and talking about why we want photos. Bottlenose dolphins' dorsal fins can act like fingerprints. So over a dolphin's lifetime, it will interact with other individuals. They're very famous for play fighting, and they will often scratch each other or injure each other like dogs do or cats do. And a dolphin has an amazing healing ability, except for on its dorsal fin. So if it gets scratched or gets raked on that dorsal fin, that mark stays as much as over its whole lifetime. And you can work out by getting a photo ID, you can make a photo ID collection, you can work out who has been where, and if we have a set catalogue of individuals that just come to Guernsey, that's what we're hoping to find out. One example, so a lot of groups have been doing this in the UK. Cornwall Wildlife Trust has famously got an individual called Clet, which is in the lower right-hand corner here. Clet's got quite a distinctive scar along his dorsal fin, so he's hard to mistake for any other dolphin. But they know, because they've been doing this IDs, that Clet has been quite often transiting between Cornwall and France, because they've managed to connect with the GECC group, and they've seen exactly who he's been with each time over, I think, about 8 years, which is amazing. So what we've managed to work out so far is we do have a small catalogue of Guernsey individuals Guernsey bottlenose individuals who have come back on a few different occasions. One example is Pip, who has a little bit of a fin goes in a little bit near the top. I think it's a bit like a can opener. But because we have worked out that their ID, we've seen that Pip has come in 2018 and 2019, and I'm still verifying the record, but someone just sent in a record, a set of photographs from January of this year, and I'm pretty sure Pip is in one of them again. So we know that pips come to Guernsey on multiple occasions. Another example is Trevor, who Richard Seeger has named from out of the blue. Trevor has been seen on 2018, 2019, and 2020. And you can see he has quite a distinctive notch taken out of the lower third of his fin. And we are now trying to work out who Pip and Trevor have been traveling with and if it's the same group the whole time. And because if we can manage to get, by getting a catalogue of all of the individuals within our area, we then can work out our population size and their distribution. I can't ignore that cetaceans have a lot of threats, both locally and worldwide. So I just want to mention a few of them. So firstly, noise pollution. This comes from things like vessel propellers, sonar, but also oil discovery devices, and also pile driving for wind farm developments. And these noises can be short-term or they can be continuous and low frequency. And it's a huge issue because cetaceans rely on sound for communication and navigation in the water. And in context, there's a map on the right-hand side which just shows the yearly accumulation of cargo vessels in the UK. This was from 2015. And this is just to note, just cargo vessels. It's not private vessels, it's not fishing vessels, it's not even ferries, but you can see just how often there are vessels traveling in the water and therefore how noisy it is. And because Guernsey is right next to the major shipping channel, we're probably having cetaceans who are impacted by noise pollution. This also leads on to the second threat, which is ship strikes. So that is when a vessel gets too close to cetaceans, and maybe due to a sudden change in direction, the cetacean gets hit and it's unable to dodge that impact. So it might wound it, it might even kill cetaceans. This is a Portsmouth image. It's really unpleasant, but I have to show it because it happens every day. So why can't cetaceans dodge out of the way of boats? Well, maybe the boat's going too fast and the cetacean can't get out of the way fast enough. That's particularly true if there's old individuals or if there's babies, they're not fast enough. But it also might be that they're cetaceans resting, sleeping on the water surface, and it just hasn't woken up in time. So both vessel noise, both noise pollution and ship strikes can be dramatically decreased by just going a little bit slower in the water if you're near areas where cetaceans are known to be. And that's something that the UK government is advocating for, especially with cargo vessels. Other points include like plastic and pollutants. So things like litter that goes into the water, plastic bags or tin cans, they might be mistaken by cetacean as a jellyfish or like a tin can as a crab. So cetaceans sometimes ingest them. This was a photo of the stomach contents of a whale up in Iceland, I think from last year. So the whale had stranded and died, and they did an autopsy and discovered that its stomach was full of plastic because it probably had thought, oh, yum, jellyfish. But by doing those beach cleans around Guernsey that the Clean Earth Trust have advocated for, you can really make a difference. Just limit the amount of litter that goes into the ocean, and therefore it just limits the contact that cetaceans have with it. What we can't limit so much, but we can advocate limits that we can get more awareness about, is the chemical pollutants. Things like old pesticides, or heavy metals that have historically gone into the water. They can persist in the environment for a really long time. And because cetaceans are at the top of the food chain, they tend to bioaccumulate up the food chain, and cetaceans get the worst damage. So one chemical, for example, PCB, stands for polychlorinated biphenyl. It can cause loss of fertility and nerve damage. We know that the French dolphins of Normandy have quite high levels of this in their blubber, in their skin, because there was a report that was just published last year on it. They also know that the dolphins around France are quite contaminated with heavy metals like mercury. So these can all just cause a host of health problems, and it just means that our populations might not be so great at rearing young. So we have to make sure that every small individual that can possibly happen can reach adulthood. So just helps keep the population stable. Lastly, things like climate change, industrial fishing practices. We know climate change impacts ocean life, and dolphins are no different. They're impacted by it. But I could talk for hours and hours about it, and I'm not going to today. Industrial fishing practices is a huge impact on areas like the Bay of Biscay, where there's very big super trawlers out in the water. And there's a campaign going on right now to limit those super trawlers. So I would, if you can, go and look on the WDC websites. But so far, in between 2020 and 2021, I think they've found over 1,000 common dolphins stranded on the beach as a result of industrial fishing practices in the Bay of Biscay. So it's not far from us, and it could impact some of our populations in the future. So it's just something that we should be aware of. And then if you all the boaters out there, I'm sure, have seen the Guernsey Harbour's guidelines for observing cetaceans in our waters, and they're pretty easy rules as far as I'm aware, and they kind of follow a standard that's set in England and set in areas like New Zealand as well, which is just to keep your distance. So they recommend 100 meters. If you first see one 100 meters away, try and not head straight for it, because they're going to freak out. 100 meters, I think, is the length of a football pitch. And if the dolphin wants to interact with you, they'll pretty quickly come your way and try and bow ride, and that's fine. If the dolphin approaches you, go for it. Let them bow ride. There's nothing wrong with that. If you're bow riding with a dolphin, try and keep a steady pace and not change direction too rapidly, because if, like with surfers, if you're surfing in a wave and it changes direction, you're going to fall off. It's the same thing with dolphins. They get a bit confused if suddenly the wave that they were riding disappears. Try and not crowd dolphins. They say no more than 3 boats to a pod, and don't corral them, because you might separate individuals and it causes distress. And the last 2 rules: don't feed them and don't swim with them. I don't know if anyone has been right next to the bottlenose dolphins, but they're huge and they have sharp teeth. It's just not a good idea. There's also some studies and some really fun newspaper extracts that come out every year, especially in France for bottlenose dolphins. But in many areas of the UK, or in the UK and in the US, it's actually illegal to feed dolphins, because they need to have live fish as part of their diet in order to get water. So dolphins don't drink from the sea, they just eat a fish, and that supplies them with water. And if you try and feed a dolphin something that's not fresh and doesn't have water in it, it just dehydrates them. and dolphins can get really dependent on humans feeding them, and that means that they leave a pod or just follow boats all day, and that has led to many dolphin deaths. This was a beggar, which was one dolphin in Florida that this happened to. Yeah, we don't want this happening in Guernsey. Also, in terms of swimming, while it's hazard to human health, it can also be a hazard to dolphin health. In New Zealand, they have found that dolphin populations that are exposed to human swimmers for a large amount of time decrease their rates of reproductive success. So only 25% of babies actually reach adulthood in these populations, which is very abnormal, and it means that the New Zealand population has decreased as a result of swimmers. So I think they banned swimmers actually in the Bay of Islands now from swimming with dolphins. Right, so how you can help, I'm nearly at the end now. Please send in your sightings records if you have them. Not only of things that you've seen this year, but if you've got older records, we'd love to see them, and we would love to add them to our database. Come and join us out on surveys, or we can give you advice on how to do your own surveys if you're interested. Hopefully, when everything returns to normal this summer, if it does return to normal, we'll be doing both boat and land surveys. And we would love for everyone who wants to join. And otherwise, just keep up with the guidelines and do your beach cleans when you can. And yeah, that's kind of everything you can do. And we look forward to seeing you in the future. And hopefully there will be reports soon which just show what we've done in 2020 and all the sightings we've managed to get. I should say we've got 110 sightings for 2020, which is amazing. And I'm still actually getting more sightings in, so it might even climb higher than that. And then we have been fortunate enough to get some amazing partners and sponsors who have sent in our sightings data and helped buy equipment for us, so like scopes and binoculars. So massive thank you to people like the Condor Community Fund and Waitrose, and also ICCI. Yeah, so I think, oh, I have videos if you want a very quick collection of differences between bottlenoses and other species. The most magical moment I had in 2018, and they came into the harbour really closely. Sadly, they didn't do that this year, or 2020, I mean. So common dolphins, speedy little things. And you can see the yellow stripe they have that runs along their body. This is Risso's dolphins. We don't have them doing this in Guernsey, but this is in Barnsley Island, which I desperately want to go and visit. Oh no, it's broken at the most important point. Haha.
Oh, wow.
You can see the scarring marks that cover their skin. And they have a very flat face. And then longfin pilot whales. This is a pod up in Orkney. It made the news in 2019. This pod had brought one of the members of their pod into the harbour because it was injured up above the surface so it could breathe. And then after the pod had been in the harbour for a few hours and rested, and the individual had caught its breath back, they went back out into the sea. So it was a very interesting moment. And then lastly, I've got a couple of videos of a very distant harbour porpoise. I think this is from January of this year. It's all you see of it. It's just the fin. There we go. Yeah. There we go. So if you've got any questions or anything like that, please feel free to fire away.
You might have to take everyone off mute, Nicky.
Oh yeah.
Work out how to unmute all.
I can do mute all, but I can't do unmute all. I think someone, if
Yeah.
I think people can unmute themselves if they want to. But yeah.
Yeah, as if you. Thank you. That was amazing, and I didn't realise that you were doing this. So we're more than happy to try and help you, and get help with your records, because we see lots of the members see.
Thank you. It's fantastic to be getting all of the people, especially recently. I've had some people who've said that they've seen the talk coming up, and that they've shared their details with me already. So yeah, I'm so grateful to have people sending in their sightings of past and recent station encounters.
And we're so lucky to have them in our waters. They're amazing to see every single time. So yeah. Has anyone got any questions for Nicky? Put your hand up or unmute yourself.
Yeah, can I ask a question, Nicky? Hi, it's Margaret here. I missed out a few bits because my internet was breaking down. Whereabouts are you based, and do you have a web address or something, or that we can send you stuff to?
So in terms of where we're based, I work or volunteer with the Guernsey Biological Record Centre. We are currently building a website for the Dolphin project, but we do have an email already, which hopefully you might be able to see on the email that's been sent out. It's dolphin, spelled DOLFIN, project@outlook.com. And hopefully our email, our website will be hopefully open soon. We had planned to get it finished by the end of last year, but life got in the way, and then COVID got in the way. So a little bit delayed. We also have a Facebook page.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, perfect.
Yeah, I'll put something out on our next newsletter, Margaret, as well, for everybody. And we're more than happy to, as a club, to sort of collate information and pass it on to Nicky.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
I'm glad you mentioned pilot whales too, because I met one. This was a good few years ago. This was near Guernsey. So yes, I'll get in touch with you with Dolphin Project at outlook.com. Is it?
That'd be
Yes.
fantastic.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
And
Colin.
I had a lovely dolphins encounter, but that was nearer the French coast. Another story, but we'll talk about that later. Yeah. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Molly's
Nicky,
got a question, yeah.
hi, it's Polly here. Your picture of Jim that was taken 2 years apart in the same waters, would that not suggest that the pod is local to here rather than coming from somewhere else? Because it was almost to the day in July, 2 years apart. Would that not suggest to you that they were quite locally based rather than meandering from somewhere else?
There's the idea that they can, yeah, they might be local, definitely possible, but the fact that we don't see them every single time means that they're going somewhere else. And also we don't know, in case of Trevor, we don't know who else he's been with
Okay.
on each occasion. So we don't, dolphin pods, bottlenose dolphin pods are very flexible. So they're not going to stay with the same individuals every single time. They might, for a hunting trip, say, like Trevor might say, oh, I'm just going to stay with Jim and Jodie or something like that just for this trip. And then when they go on a scouting mission, it might be a completely different set of individuals that Trevor's with. So we don't know if Trevor's the only one that's decided to be local or that the whole pod is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you track them at all? Do you put trackers on them so you can see how far they travel and what distance they travel in a day or a year? Or
This is a really good question. So for trackers, they're quite an invasive measure to put on dolphins. And bottlenose dolphins are also famous for knocking trackers off, which is quite an expensive piece of equipment to lose. But you can do some pretty advanced monitoring just by the fin IDs. So you can see if we coordinate with other groups. For example, I've been able to talk with the Isle of Man group. We might be able to see if, for example, Risso's dolphins have been traveling up and down between us and them. And then it's the same with the Cornwall group. So we don't always need the trackers to track them.
okay. Do they pair for life?
No, I want to say they do. Dolphins,
Faithful.
they're not very faithful at all. They sometimes have best friends, which is quite cool. So, but they're not monogamous by any stretch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's lovely. Thank you, Nicky.
Thank you.
Nicky, I don't know if you can hear me. That was excellent, and we thoroughly enjoyed it.
That's lovely.
And I do, having been a great lover of Herm and used Travel Trident to go backwards and forwards between Herm, they have always been very good and have said to the people on board, look, there's dolphins there. But what has always caused us distress for the dolphins are the jet skiers. They have caused so much damage. Whether the states of Guernsey can step in and say jet skiers can ski up and down between Marble Bay and, I don't know, the harbour, but I really do feel we should be stopping the jet skiers because they really do cause havoc to animals like dolphins.
I agree to some extent, definitely, that there are some jet skiers in Guernsey who should not go anywhere near dolphins, and it causes me distress as well seeing them. One of a friend of mine called JP, who has run JP Jet Skis, which is a touring company that he responsibly monitors and manages himself. He has a really good track record of keeping his distance, allowing the dolphins to come to him. And he actually has his own dolphin that he's named called Nugget, who will come from a distance to follow his jet ski because he's followed really good guidelines. But I definitely agree with you that there needs to be something in place for jet skiers, but also I think for some rib owners that they almost need to take a license or be monitored if there are dolphins in the area, because it's not good to watch someone go just bulldozing into the pod. I'm not really sure what can be done, but yeah.
No, I agree with you totally. I'm just going to look in my phone because I took lots of photographs of some of the dolphins that came in following a trident and condor, and they came right into the harbour. It must have been about 3 years ago now, 3 or 4 of them, and it was fascinating.
It's always a magical experience when they're especially coming into the harbour. Yeah.
Oh, yes, definitely. Anyway, thank you very much. That was very interesting.
No, it was lovely.
You halfway through, but
on the noise.
On the recording, but we've recorded it, so we'll go back and watch it.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Thank you, Nicky. Oh, just one more question. How often do you liaise with Normandy or Brittany on all this?
So Liz has we've both had some talks last year with one of the GCC members, and we want to start talking about looking between our collections of IDs. It's still really early days though for us, and we want to have a few more IDs in place before we do properly start swapping. But also one of the members of the GCC team was just finishing off their PhD, so they were going through the manic phase of doing their Viva, and we need to reconnect for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, early days, but yeah, we're talking.
If it's any help, I'm a translator, French speaker.
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean,
Liz is interest.
happily...
I just wanted to, I'd love to get involved. That's all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nicky. No, thank you so much. I'm sorry I'm having to pull out now because I've got another meeting, believe it or not. Sorry.
No worries.
No disrespect. And I'll be in touch anyway. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris has got his hand up.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello. Sorry, yeah. We were on about a couple of years ago on the backside of Herm, and we saw, I think it was well over 100, but it was 3 pods that seemed to come together, and they had a big party in the middle, just where the puffin area was, and it was quite spectacular. And we were the only boat there, and that seemed to be a little bit against what you were suggesting, that the pods would come together and have a party.
I think that it's probably heavily underreported that this kind of thing happens. I've heard from the SARC crew that they've also had a pod of 100 that seemed to amass out of nowhere. But it might be because I think I tried to show the GCC group, they had lots of dots of like the red pods or stuff like that. And those were different mini pods that might change members. So they might have a big party of meeting up, and then they'll swap groups and then go off in their own way. But we just don't get enough reports of stuff like this. So it's amazing to hear that you've got seen a pod of 100. If you've got any footage or anything like that, I'd love to see.
We've got hours of footage, but we can bury you, as I'm sure most people can around here. But yeah, okay, no, we'll send you. And what do you require out of a sighting? You require good pictures, you require location, presumably, and you require time and date. Do you require any?
Thank you. Yes, exactly. That I've realised that I've taken the slide out that it showed exactly what was wanted. But yes, exactly. location, time of day, day of year. If you can get numbers of individuals, that would be fantastic. And any photos, that's kind of the minimum required. I might ask for extra information, like what their behavior is, but the basic information, yeah, as you've mentioned.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good. Good fun.
I'm looking forward to seeing all of these videos.
Hi, Nicky.
Hello,
Nicky.
Chris.
Hi, yeah. There's a couple of questions really. What's the difference between a porpoise and a dolphin? The second thing is that I sailed to Carteret quite a lot, and you're guaranteed that once you're outside Carteret, you come across dolphins. It's fantastic.
I didn't quite catch the second question, but yeah, the Carteret area sounds amazing to be out in. I haven't been out in ages around there. What was the second question?
Well, the first question is, what's the difference between a dolphin and a porpoise? The second question was that, well, it wasn't a question, it was just a comment that when I ever sailed to Carteret, under the cliffs of Carteret, you're almost guaranteed to see dolphins.
That's fantastic. Okay, that's fine. So the difference between porpoises and dolphins is quite fascinating. It's something that I've been asking myself and poking to experts to answer. So alongside the fact that dolphins have quite, on average, on the whole, they have quite a long beak, whereas porpoises have quite a squashed face. Porpoises have very different teeth from dolphins. So all dolphin species tend to have what's called conical shaped teeth, spiky teeth, whereas porpoises have spade shaped teeth. And the best explanation I can give is Google porpoise teeth, and you will see that they're really different, and it's based on what food sources they eat. So porpoises will eat things like octopus and squid, as well as small fish species, and dolphins tend to eat more open water fish, in theory. You have to get quite close to see that difference. The only other difference is that dolphins have quite a large fin, and porpoises have this tiny triangle shaped fin, which is probably the only thing that you'll see because they're very shy.
Okay. No comments about the every time we go to Carteret, we always see dolphins.
It seems to be a hangout area. I would love to talk to the GCC more about why you're almost guaranteed to see them just around there. But honestly, I don't know enough about that particular area and like what the bottom is like. Maybe it's a really great aggregation site for fish species, and that's why everything comes there. Or it might just be that the dolphins know to go there to play with boats. But it'd be fascinating to hear from the GECC exactly why you're most likely to see them in that area.
Okay, thanks very much, Nicky.
Thanks. Oh, it's already 8 o'clock. Is there any other questions or anything like that? Or is everyone wanting to go for their dinner or second Zoom session?
You've done a great job, Nicky. Well done.
Thank you. It's been fantastic.
No, it's been really good. And like I said, we're really keen to help. So anything we can do, with the sightings, and we'll sort of push it with our members and put some notices up in the club when it's open, and try and get people to sort of to send in those details. And we'll do another sort of session when we can all get together as well. So thank you.
That'd be great. And Liz would love to do the session face to face as well. So yeah.
Yes, yeah, I know it's much easier, but you feel like you've talked for an hour. It's amazing.
It's surprising, but not surprising at all for me. Shall we finish? Thank you everyone for coming to listen to me ramble.
Thank you, Nicky.
Thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Should I end the meeting?
Yeah, I was just trying to find it, but yeah. I think you're still host, so you'll have to.
Oh yeah.
You have to.